Hi, I'm Gabby Plasencia, and I'm newly elected to Ward 5, Riverside City Council. I recently was able to sit down with Riverside TV to talk a little bit about myself and why I ran and my plan for Ward 5. So please watch our segment with your councilwoman, Gabby Plasencia.
Hi, welcome to Riverside TV. I'm Steve Brazel. Thanks for joining us once again as we get to know the new council members here in the city of Riverside, California. Today I'm joined by one of those new council members, Gabby Plasencia. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. First of all, let me start with congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the city council. And you're like me, you were raised in Riverside. So it's always interesting to me to see people that are born and raised in a town and stay involved. Like, I know so many people who try to leave their hometowns, but people like you and I, we love our hometown, we stay, we get involved, and we try and make it better. And I think that's an amazing thing. Your background in Riverside, you went through the school district here, right?
Yes.
What high school did you go to?
So I graduated from Norte Vista High School in Alvord Unified, and so I'm currently a counselor at Loma Vista Middle School.
Okay, so you're still with the Alvord school system. See, again, it keeps the theme going. When you were in high school, my understanding is, in my research of you, that you were also very involved then, right? You were honor roll. What other organizations were you part of?
So I was president of MECHA, which was a student organization, and we promoted education in Latinos. But we did a lot of community cleanups, and we were involved civically. I remember meeting with Mayor Loveridge, actually, when I was in high school, because the city used to give sponsorship money if your high school had certain events and it was open to the public. And so I remember coming to City Hall to advocate for some funds and bring it back to our school.
That's interesting to me. I'm curious if that, okay, so when you're in high school and you meet with Mayor Loveridge, legendary in the city of Riverside, wonderfully nice man, is that your first introduction to government, as it were?
It was my first introduction into how to advocate for something. And so I found it very interesting. And then what sparked my interest was giving back, cleaning up our community. Our Lanza community is very underserved. And so that's what I really enjoyed about it. And so throughout high school, I just stayed connected and stayed involved with different things. You mentioned earlier not to sing, but I used to dance in high school. I was a part of the dance team.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was in the green room when we talked about not singing or doing crowd surfing at the when you go into city government like you are now, it's different than when you're in high school and you're advocating and you're meeting a mayor, and we talked with Councilman Fierro about this. Once you walk to the other side of that door, it inevitably is not what you imagined. You've been involved in organizations before, right? Friends of the Citrus Park, what else? Latino Network you've been involved in. Tell me from your side, the differences, or what you see as the differences between being involved from the outside and now that you're inside that door.
I think there are some similarities. So in addition to being on those nonprofits, I also was a city commissioner on the Budget Engagement Commission.
With Councilman Fierro as well.
Exactly. And so I think having the opportunity to learn how to work together on a board, whether it's a nonprofit or as a commissioner, I think it was really important for me. And so the learning curve, I think, changes a little bit when you get into office, because you kind of have an idea of how to build consensus, how to get things done. And so for me, that's where I see the similarities. What is different is you don't have access to the same information that typical residents have that maybe are not on the election or the elected official side. And so the difference is that the amount of information, the pressure, I think, of making decisions and how it impacts 325,000 people.
Right. So when you end up on a city council or in any of these nonprofits we're talking about, and you end up with access to that information, that's got to, in some way, having had experience on the other side, the consumer side, the public citizen side, it's got to, at the same time, color the way you understand how they see it.
Yes, it does, because there was frustration, let's say when I was a commissioner, where I felt that as a body we made a decision, but we weren't the ultimate body that made the final vote on things. And so that was now being on the other side where I'm making those decisions, where maybe commissioners various commissions are maybe giving us advice or to go in a different direction, now I see why we do what we do or why the council votes a certain way. And so for me, it's about how do we kind of walk that fine line between letting our commissioners know we voted a certain way and this is the reason why. But I felt like that was missing when I was a commissioner, that frustration of, well, why did they do that? I never got those answers.
Almost a transparency, but an informational sharing type.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's transparency because I never felt that they were trying to hide things
Right.
from us. It was more of a, I know you get busy and you're overwhelmed and you have a
Right.
lot going on and you can attend all these meetings. But for me, if there was some kind of follow-up, even if it took one quarter to say, hey, you know, validate us somehow. And so for me, it was that disconnect that I felt frustrated with. And so now as a council member,
You can help solve it.
I can help solve it. I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make sure that our commissioners feel heard and feel that we respect their time and that their opinions and their guidance does impact us and that we are taking that into consideration.
You've mentioned, when I do research on you, you've mentioned a number of things that I find interesting from a success point of view. So you speak of the successes of things like the Arlington Youth Innovation Center.
Mm-hmm.
You also are an advocate for better access to STEAM type
Yes.
programs, right? Science, technology, engineering, arts,
arts.
and math. Tell me a little bit about what those successes mean.
Well, I think for me as a counselor, right? I'm talking to youth all the time, and so for me, it's about how to give them access. So the Youth Innovation Center will have access. Our youth will have access to free programs or low cost, and so my job as a council member is to really look at partnering, strengthening those partnerships, looking at sponsorship opportunities so that we can provide, you know, computer programming classes or something that maybe the students don't have access to. So for example, in Alvord, we were able to bring back some music programs, but I think it's not enough. And so really using the Youth Innovation Center and other nonprofits where we can really have these opportunities for our local youth to access because they don't have that. You know, with the recession and the budget cuts, you know, the first thing to go are these kinds of extracurricular activities, these, you know, the fine arts and that kind of thing. And research shows that our students need them so much.
Research actually shows that kids who study music do better in math and sciences, and yet, like you say, it's always the first thing that's cut in a budget situation. I'm a strong advocate for arts education. I do photography myself. One of the other things that I want to talk to you about is your homeless plan.
Yes.
So, you know, during the election, this is a big thing in Riverside. We talk about it on Riverside Monthly with Mayor Bailey regularly, the topic of in various,
Sure.
you know, from various points of view, the homeless situation in Riverside. If you would, share with us a little bit about how you see the homeless situation as it stands and what solutions perhaps you might.
Well, homelessness, in my opinion, is multifaceted, right? We have students and parents in our school districts that are homeless. You know, they live either in a hotel, you know, in their cars, those kinds of things. We have those that are drug dependent. We have those that have mental health issues. And so for me, it's about a multifaceted approach. So there are several things that I'm working on and that I will continue to work on. I think it's going to take our regional partners, the county board, statewide, in addition to our neighboring elected officials from different cities who you know, continue to use our resources. You know, we have the county jail and the county mental hospital, which I believe increases our homeless population because they come here to seek services that other cities don't have. And then instead of going back to their point of origin, they're here in Riverside, you know, utilizing our services, which is okay. However, when we're in a budget crisis and you know, we can't support everyone's homeless problem. And so working with our county board of supervisors to ensure that the county jail and the county mental hospital have a transportation system to take those that are released from both of these locations back to their point of origin. In addition to working with our faith-based organizations, our nonprofits, to ensure that they're out there. Really, we have the interns out there that are trying to get our homeless individuals into either rehab, into our shelters. We just approved, I think at our last council meeting, to purchase more beds at the shelter to help with the temporary assistance for the rental temporary assistance. So I think we need to look at it on all levels. And I think for me too, it's about being out there and figuring out how best I can help. So you don't know what you don't know. So I have a ride along this week.
That's a really good line, especially when it comes to homeless, because
Right.
it feels as though there is not a homeless problem. There are causes coming from so many different ways.
Right. And you can't pigeonhole everybody, right? You know, you think
Right.
of homeless individuals and people, especially in the community, those that, you know, see them as an eyesore, they don't want them on the streets. I see it as a public health issue. And so it is something that we need to address immediately. And so we are taking steps in that direction. It's not going to happen overnight, just as we haven't increased in our population overnight. But it's going to take us being proactive, really partnering with everyone, all the stakeholders, to ensure that we're getting them into the services, off the streets. Those that, you know, are in violation, those that are criminals, because they are not all criminals, are being, you know, taken care of by the police. And so, you know, I have a tour being set up with the county mental hospital. And so there's just all these things that have to be done. And so I really want to see from beginning to end, when, let's say, a police officer is called because there's a homeless individual at a business, you know, I want to see what the process is, what they do, what happens to them. You can ticket them all day long, but they don't,
Exactly.
you know, that's not going to be an effective solution. So I think it's going to take us time. We are doing several things. We have the PSET team that's out there also trying to get them into services. We're partnering with the county. And so I think our approach is multifaceted. I think we need to continue down that approach, always look at what's working, what's not, how can we tweak it.
Constantly learning.
Exactly.
Basically.
Looking at maybe getting more interns out there so that we can increase the contacts. The more you contact an individual about getting services, or moving them to where they need to be if they come from, you know, the desert or what have you, that we get them back to that place. So it's just going to take time, but I'm committed to really working on it, really looking at what the problem is, because, you know, there's not going to be one solution for this.
So I want to transition to the fact that this is our mutual hometown growing up, and we're both raised here. And you being, I mentioned earlier, the Friends of the Citrus Park, and I recently did a photo walk with a friend of mine. He's a tech writer for USA Today, and he does a YouTube series on photo walks. And he asked me to do one in and around the city of Riverside, and I started looking and thinking, what landmarks in Riverside could I take him to? And the Citrus Park popped into my head. I took him to see the parent Navel, and then I took him out to the Citrus Park. And you being on Friends of the Citrus Park, tell me, to close us out here, kind of what your attachment is to that, what I think often not thought about enough
Sure.
gem that we have
Yes.
here in Riverside.
Exactly. It's a hidden gem. And so I would like to really put it on the map. I think that we can partner with our senator, our state legislator, to bring some funds into the state park, because we are lacking some funds to really do some things that I think will attract not just those that love the history, but young families. I have a 4-year-old, and so there are some things. My daughter would rather go to Arlington Heights because they have the jungle gym and swings.
Right.
And you know, the Citrus Park doesn't have that. And so for me, being on the board for, I want to say this is my 5th year, is really about having that different lens. You know, how can we make the park more attractive to families, to
Right.
a different group? And so what I've done is I created a partnership with Norda Vista's AVID program. And so our AVID students come and volunteer at the gift shop, and those students as well that are doing the FFA or the Plant Animal Academy at Norda Vista will partner with our rangers, and they learn about irrigation and those things. And those that volunteer in the gift shop, they learn real world experience, right? You know, customer service, so
Right.
that they can get a job while they're going to school. And in turn, I was able to advocate for the board to give scholarships to our students.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
nice.
Yeah, so I think this is our 2nd or 3rd year now that we have, you know, students come in and work in the gift shop, so we don't have to pay employees. The students are learning. The hope is that they come back and either, you know, become a ranger, being able to get a job within the city while they're going to college. And so for me, that was my role there, and really looking at how we can better serve the community. As a council member, I still plan on being involved and looking at putting us on the map, maybe doing a tour of Ward 5. Let's eat and you know, go for a hike. And
I like that.
You know, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of things that we can do, because I think being on the west side of town, sometimes we're neglected. Don't get me wrong, I love downtown. I love to come down and, you know, take my daughter to go eat and go to the library and all those things that we used to do. But I'd like to stay in Ward 5 and really build up maybe that, Magnolia business area and maybe have a little mini downtown there. So if we want to have food there, have Olivia's, but, have a little cake shop we can walk to,
Right.
those kinds of things. So I really see me investing a lot and supporting the small businesses there.
Yeah, building the community. And I really think that, like, the Citrus Park's a good example. There are just some hidden gems in this town
There are.
that getting new council members on the council to bring those experiences, the Norte Vista High School, the honor roll, the fact that you went to school out of town in Los Angeles, but still came back to raise your family here in Riverside.
Oh, yeah.
Those types of points of views and visions are just going to be wonderful for the city that I love.
Right.
So again, congratulations on the
Thank
win.
you.
And welcome to the City Council, and we really look forward to seeing what you do.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure. Again, it's Riverside TV. We're doing a series on all the new council members here for the City of Riverside. I'm Steve Brazel. Make sure you check out each and every show.